Hi everyone, I'm Anoosha Syed. Welcome to another exciting video. This one's gonna be a special one because of the fact that very recently I reached 10,000 subscribers, which I still can't believe. Thank you guys so much as always for supporting my videos, watching my content, and sticking with it through all the highs and the lows. Because a little bit of background, I guess, on the channel. The whole reason that I started making videos was that a few years ago, you guys, some of you might remember this, some of you might not, I had a podcast called The Art Corner. I hosted it with another artist who I absolutely love. Her name is Syed, and we came out with like maybe 12 episodes of this little podcast. Every episode would talk about a different thing to do with art. And our motto was basically teaching you guys things that we never learned in art school, because both me and Vicky had pretty bad art school experiences. And so we had a really great time on that podcast, but unfortunately, because of conflicting schedules, we had to stop doing it. And I really wanted to bring it back up in some way. I really liked the podcast, but I got really busy with work. But I keep having, like, I go to conventions and like, you guys are so sweet. Like, you'd come up to me and be like, I really love your podcast. When is it gonna start up again? And so I always thought that, like, okay, what if I do a YouTube channel? But the problem was that I have no idea how to do YouTube. I don't know how to make videos and stuff like that, or like if even people would be interested. And I kept putting it off and putting it off. And then the pandemic happened. And then I had all this free time and I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna put my money where my mouth is and try this out, because what else am I gonna do? And so that was in March of this year. And since then I've made a couple of videos, and I'm really shocked, I guess, by how much you guys have been enjoying them. And I'm really glad that they have been of help, because like really all I want to do is that, like I said, I didn't have like a great art school experience, and even beyond that, I feel like as an illustrator, there aren't a lot of resources out there, especially ones that are very accessible or really explain what it's like to be an illustrator in like the professional sense. Because art school, they'll teach you how to be an artist. Like they taught me how to draw and everything, but in terms of preparing me for the real world, for preparing me to be a business person, because that's technically what I am, like I own a business, no one has taught me any of that. And that's something I've had to learn through trial and so much error throughout the years. And I just want to make it easier for you guys, I guess, especially for artists who are not based out of North America, because I find that, like, even more so outside of the US and Canada, it's even more difficult to find information, because there are even fewer art schools, there are even fewer resources and opportunities available. And that's all I'm trying to do. And so for that, like, thank you guys so much, so much for watching my videos, for supporting me. And yeah, 10,000, I can't believe it. So to celebrate, I'm doing two things with this video. One is that because I asked you guys, what can I do to celebrate? And some people suggested that I do a question answer, which I thought could be kind of fun. And so I'm gonna do a Q&A with a little bit of like an introduction about myself for people who don't really know who I am. And then apart from that, the other thing that I want to do to celebrate is that I'm holding a giveaway, because this is all thanks to you guys. So this is going to be held on Instagram, and then you'll find a link to my Instagram page below, but it's also at foxville_art. And then you'll find a post there which has all the necessary information. But basically, this giveaway is going to be held worldwide. Anyone can submit to this, and after a certain number of days, which will be included in the thing, because I don't know when I'm releasing this video, so I don't want to give a specific date yet, I will randomly pick a winner and they will receive a bunch of goodies from me. And these goodies are a copy of I Am Perfectly Designed, written by Karama Brown and illustrated by me. A copy of Bilal Cookstyle, written by Aisha Syed and illustrated by me as well. This tote bag, which was designed by me very beautifully, very beautifully screen printed, not by me, by someone else, but it is a great thing to carry around all of your art supplies and stuff in, as well as a bunch of stickers as well as 2 prints you can choose from my store. So that is clearly a bunch of stuff, but this is a big one, I think. And I haven't done a giveaway in a while, so if you would like to enter and perhaps win something, please check out my Instagram post, and yeah, good luck. And so now that's out of the way, let's move on with the Q&A. So first of all, I thought it would be nice if I started off with a little introduction about myself, just because I feel like I haven't really done that yet on this channel. I mean, some of you might already know me through my Twitter, my Instagram, and conventions and whatnot, but I figured it would be nice to just formally introduce myself and what I do. So hi, my name is Anoosha Syed. I am a 27-year-old illustrator and character designer for animation living in Toronto, Canada. I'm originally from Pakistan, more specifically from Karachi, but I moved around a lot when I was growing up. So besides Pakistan, I've also lived in Saudi Arabia, Dubai, Texas, Switzerland, and now in Canada. I'm primarily a children's book illustrator, and I've been doing that for about 5 years now since I graduated, and I believe I've illustrated over 20 children's books now, and also a couple of covers, and I have a graphic novel that is coming out soon as well. I'm also a character designer for animation, and I've had 2 full-time positions, one working at Industrial Brothers as a character designer, or like a general designer on the show Dot, and currently I'm at Atomic Cartoons on an unannounced project which I hope to share in the future soon. But mainly my character design role is that I work as a development artist, and basically that means that I am contacted as a freelancer by various studios. Some of the ones that I've worked with in the past include Warner Brothers, Netflix, Disney Junior, DreamWorks TV, Atomic Cartoons, DHX, and so on. And what my main job is mostly is that when a studio is coming up with a concept for a TV series, or they're in like the very early stages of that show, they will contact artists to help determine what the style of the show could look like. So usually like the shows that I'll work on are for preschool because I have that kid-lit background, and so I just help to come up with a couple of ideas for what the show could look like with the character designs and everything. Unfortunately, since this is all like really early stages, sometimes these shows turn into something completely different from what I first started with and won't use my designs. Sometimes the projects are cancelled entirely. So that part is a little bit difficult because I can never really share what I've done with those types of shows because it's usually like just gone from existence and like not allowed to share. But it's a job that I really love because these studios come to me specifically for my own style, and I get to just play with it and work on some really cool projects. I've also worked a little bit in editorial illustration and packaging design. I've worked with Google on one of the Google Doodles once, and I also have an online store. As for my art school education, I studied at Ceruleum École d'Art Visuel, which is in Lausanne, Switzerland, where I got my Bachelor's of Illustration. And that's pretty much all I can think of for my basic introduction, but I guess we can now move on to the Q&A. I had asked you guys on Instagram for a bunch of questions, so I'm just going to read off on my phone now. Number 1, how did you get introduced into the idea of illustrating for books? So this was kind of accidental, I guess. The whole thing was that like how I got interested in art in the first place was that I actually wanted to be a writer for most of my life. I was a really big bookworm when I was growing up until high school, and then when I was in high school, I started to discover my love for animation and became really into that. And so when I was graduating, I was really looking into animation schools for my degree. Unfortunately, me and my parents were still like not really on terms with me being an artist, you know, brown parents and all of that. And so the compromise that we had was that I would go to the school where my older sister was at, American University of Sharjah, and I was going to do, I believe the course was called Visual Communication, which is about as far away from art as you can get while still kind of being it. It was basically like branding and logos for corporate stuff. I was there for about a semester and I hated it, and then I came back home, and then that was around the time when my family moved to Switzerland. I went along with them, and then I joined an art school there called Visual. And when I was there, they did have an animation program and I wanted to join it, but the thing is that that school was taught entirely in French. So the principal, well, the headmaster, I don't know, the school board had told me that, listen, Anoosha, your French sucks. You can't speak it at all. Since first grade, I'd been learning French in school, but I never really paid attention because I thought, like, when am I ever gonna use this? Turns out I was gonna use it at the school. But they told me that, yeah, your French sucks right now. You can't join the animation program, but we do have an illustration program. I guess you might be able to get by over there with minimal French. Just stay there for now, and then in about like a year we'll check in and see how your French is doing. If we feel like you've done a lot better, we'll switch you to the animation program. And so I was like, fine, whatever, I'll join the illustration program. And so I did that for about a year, and then I ended up really, really enjoying it. Partly because I felt like illustration was still going to be my ticket to animation as well, because I didn't want to go more so in like the animation route and more so on like the visual development area. I was obsessed with all of my art of books, and I saw those and I was like, oh, okay, if I feel like illustration would be a better fit if I want to go into like concept art and stuff like that. So that's why I stuck on with illustration, and I was like, you know what, it's okay, I won't join the animation program, I'm fine with illustration. And one of the things that really solidified that was that one year we got to go to the Bologna Children's Book Fair, which is like this awesome convention in Italy, which is very much focused on children's books illustration. And so being in that community, being at that event, like really made it clear that illustration was the way to go, and like that was the stuff that I was more interested in. And that's kind of how it started. Right after I graduated, we moved to Canada, and I was still really into animation, and so I had joined an animation studio, and I was working there full-time and kind of doing picture books on the side, like at nighttime. I'd work 8 hours, come home, and then work for another like 4 hours on books every night. But I always thought of it as a side thing. And then the more I did it, the more I realized that, you know what, no, picture books is where I really want to be. And that's just what I've been doing ever since. Which authors would you love to work with? This is kind of a tough one. I'm actually really not sure. I would love to work with Lemony Snicket. I know that's not his real name, but I was obsessed with A Series of Unfortunate Events when I was little, and so I would love to work on a project written by him. That would be really cool. In terms of other books, oh, I loved Jacqueline Wilson books when I was growing up as well. I think I pretty much read everything she wrote, so probably something written by her as well. Though honestly, the guy who illustrated all of her books is this one guy called Nick Sharat. He's illustrated literally all of her things, so I think he might be a little bit mad if I took over his job. I think more so I'd be interested in re-illustrating an existing work. Like I'd love to do a retelling of Matilda, for example. That would be something I'd really enjoy. How do you keep your hands/neck healthy with lots of drawing? This is kind of a tough one, but super important, because as an artist, your most important tool is your body. You really got to look after your hands, obviously, because that's where you're drawing with, but of course your neck, your back, your eyes. It's really important to look after your body because it's the only one you've got. So some of the things that really helps me out, because I've got horrible back and whatever arm issues, I make sure that when I'm drawing I have good posture, make sure I have a good chair, make sure definitely that I am standing up every once in a while. I have an Apple Watch, which reminds me to get up like every hour and take walks around. I've been looking into getting a standing desk as well, because I really think that would help. I would also definitely look into stretching. Yoga has been really helpful for me, especially I love the channel Yoga with Adrienne. She has been super helpful for me to making sure that my body is working. I also highly recommend this book called Draw Stronger: Self-Care for Cartoonists and Visual Artists, written by Creota Wilberg. It is a super cool guide to making sure you are taking care of yourself. It has a bunch of stretches that you can do, tips that you can take to make sure that you have good posture and good workflow, I guess. And it is an illustrated guide, which is also super helpful because I'm a very visual person. And yes, I highly recommend that if you're looking to change up your work setting. How do you keep yourself from procrastinating on projects? Let me tell you, I have so much trouble with focusing on my work. I don't know what it is. If I have a deadline, then for sure the creeping pressure of that deadline will make sure I get my work done. But apart from that, if I have like a really long project with like an indefinite due date, it really it's so hard for me to make sure I work and get the job done, especially as a freelancer, as a self-employed artist. Because I set my own hours and I don't have a boss like standing over my head, it's so hard for me to get up in the morning and actually sit down to work. And so I have to be very strict with myself. That means doing things like making sure I have strict times of working. Like I have to be sitting at my desk at 9 and getting off at 5. I will try to make sure my phone is away from my desk because I tend to look at my phone a lot. I tend to look at like Twitter and Instagram. One of the tips that has really helped me is the Pomodoro technique, which is basically a timer that you can use. If you just search for Pomodoro technique, it'll show up on Google. I believe the timer goes that like you work for 25 minutes straight and then a 5-minute break, and then another 25-minute, 5-minute break, 25-minute break, 5-minute break, and you do that 4 times, and then you get a 30-minute break. And so it's a really good way to like really focus all your energy in those 25 minutes of work, no distractions, and then you get a little bit of a break. And that has really helped me, especially when I need to super focus on a project. In terms of another little trick that I've taught myself is that what I'll usually do is I have a calendar, like a Google Calendar with alerts of when something is due. And so the sneaky thing that I like to do is if, let's say I have a project that's due on the 15th, in my calendar, I'll actually put it in as like 1 week earlier, just so that like in my head, I'm like, okay, yeah, it's due on the 7th, it's due on the 7th. And when the 6th comes around and I'm just not getting it done and like I'm stressing out, then later on I'll see in my emails that like, oh wait, I still have 1 more week. I still get that looming pressure of a deadline, which really makes me work, but I still have a little bit of like wiggle room. So in case I don't get it done on time, I'm still able to get it done. It's just a sneaky little trick for myself because I need it. Speaking of pressure, how do you deal with having to make art under pressure and art block? If it's not for like a client, if this is just personal work, if I'm dealing with art block, the main thing is that it's usually that I just need a break. Sometimes that's pretty much all your body needs, is that you might be just drawing too much or you're really trying to force yourself. And so sometimes you just need to take a step back and go on a walk, go explore the world, make new experiences, because sometimes I feel very strongly that if you're just drawing all day, you don't really get any inspiration from that per se. Like you get inspiration from your life experiences. So it's important that you go out and actually explore the world and like, you know, interact with people, have new different hobbies that you can draw that inspiration from. So if I'm feeling art blocked, I might take that as a chance to watch some movies, to try out a new hobby, to go to a new location, anything to like really bring up some new ideas in my head. And if that doesn't really get me to start drawing again, at least I get a good experience out of it and a break, because sometimes that's all you need. If this is for work, here's the thing, a client does not care if you have art block or if you are not feeling inspired, because at the end of the day, you have a deadline to fulfill. So that really is all that is needed for me to get it done, is that the idea that I need to get it done. I have to get paid, there's a deadline to commit, I can't worry about having an art block right now, I just have to get it done. And that kind of pressure actually helps me. I don't know. What does kind of help is the fact that like you might have this idea in your head of like what the drawing is gonna look like, and you're like, oh man, like this sucks, it doesn't look good. But like it's mostly because it doesn't match what's in your head, but like the outside world has no idea. You know what I mean? Like a client is not gonna really care if it's not up to your highest of standards. Sometimes you just gotta get the work done because they just care about having it in their hands. I will say one more thing though. This is another thing, an analogy that I really like about art block, that you can imagine it as a pen, like one of those ballpoint pens. Sometimes you get a ballpoint pen and you're drawing with it and nothing is really coming out. So you gotta like really scribble and scribble and scribble for a bit until the ink finally comes out. Sometimes that's what you have to do, is that if you are in an art block and like everything you're drawing, you're just like, oh, this all sucks, nothing good is coming out. Sometimes that's just needs to happen. Sometimes you have to draw like all of like the gross stuff that you don't really like until the good ink comes out. I don't know if any of that made sense, but I hope that helps. Do you get royalties when book art is made into merchandise? So this depends on the project. Personally, I have not received any royalties from merchandise, only because none of my books have been made into merchandise yet. Generally in the contract it would have like a section that says that like you would get royalties for like this percentage for paperback, this percentage for hardcover, audiobook, etc. And there might be a section for if your art is being turned into like merchandise, TV, movies, etc. Usually there will be, you would get a percentage of royalties from that, but if it is work for hire, for example, the Cromwell book was work for hire, usually celebrity books are. If this was ever made into a TV show, for example, or merchandise, I wouldn't get any royalties from it, which is perfectly fine because I was paid work for hire money for it, so it's okay. But yeah, I think it really depends on the contract, but in general, you should, unless it is work for hire. Also, work for hire means that you are giving up all of your rights to the artwork. Generally, and this is very important, the artist would keep the right to their artwork. So it doesn't give the publisher the right to manipulate the artwork to do whatever they want with it without your permission. For work for hire, you are giving away all your rights. So for this publisher, they can do literally whatever they want with it now. Like they can make they can make a movie out of it, they can make merchandise, they can make t-shirts, whatever, without my involvement. That is work for hire. If you're working on a project that's work for hire, you should be getting paid like double, triple, quadruple, whatever of a normal like not work for hire project, because they're paying for the right of artwork. So just keep that in mind when you are accepting any contracts. Did you have a manager before getting a literary agent? So if you guys have seen my literary illustration agent videos, I currently have a literary agent who I absolutely love. Before her, I had an illustration agent, or I was part of an illustration agency. I've never had a manager. I don't really know if artists have managers unless they're like public figures, I guess. I think maybe some YouTube type artists might, because they're more so for like promotional marketing type reasons. But if you are a regular illustrator or artist, I don't think you'd need a manager. Could you talk about your favorite Procreate brushes? This is gonna be a short one because I have one Procreate brush that I use that I absolutely love, and that is the 6B pencil brush. It is one of the default Procreate brushes, and I use it for literally everything. I use it for line art, for coloring, for painting, for details, literally everything. I've duplicated that brush and just adjusted it for my needs. So like I'll make one that's kind of like bigger and one that's a little finer. But yeah, absolutely love that brush. There are a couple others that I like using for example, from Meg Hunt, Max, I'm sorry I'm gonna get your name wrong, Max Ulickney, from VV Brushes. They make very good brushes, but I more so use their brushes for adding in texture, like splatter and like rough edge stuff. But 6B pencil all the way. What are your favorite things to illustrate outside of work? I'm pretty basic. I like drawing cute girls. That's it. That's it. One of my illustrator pals, Lily Williams, she's super, super cool. She asked me a question. For students, how do you figure out where to go in the illustration field? It's so big. So this is one of the things that I kind of love about illustration. When you think of illustration, you think it's already kind of like a niche area, even within the world of art as a career. But within illustration, there are even more of these like little niches that you can go into. You can go into editorial illustration, you can go into like product design, children's books, packaging, toys, like general illustration, advertising. Like there's so many other little fields you can go in. The cool thing is that if you have a versatile style, you can try out these different areas. Like even though I'm primarily a children's book illustrator, I have done stuff in editorial and some of these other areas as well. But I think that when you're starting out, I feel like it's important to stick to one of these areas that you really want to focus on. And the reason that I say this is that when you are starting out, your portfolio, as I've mentioned before in like the portfolio video, is that it is going to be doing all the talking for you, and it is the thing that's going to get you hired for work. If your portfolio is a mishmash of all of these different areas, it can get confusing for possible clients to figure out what they're going to do with you and what you're able to do. If you focus in on one of these areas, you can really cater your portfolio and like tailor make it for that industry rather than just kind of half-assing it in all of these different areas. Because of course it takes a lot of time and energy to make a portfolio and pieces for your portfolio. And if you only have like one illustration for editorial, one illustration for children's books, one illustration for packaging, it is a little bit lacking in all of those areas. Whereas instead you can create 3 full illustrations for children's books, for example. Later on, of course, you can branch out a little bit more, but I feel like it's important to focus in on one of them. And in terms of how you determine which area you focus on, it's kind of up to you. It depends on what your own interests are and what you really enjoy doing and what is you feel like would be a good fit for your art style as well. For example, because I have a very kind of suited for kids, like a cute style, it makes sense for me to be in kidlit. And I know that my art isn't really suited for editorial or stuff like typography and like, I don't know, stuff like that. But some other people might be better suited for doing card games or for doing those like really modern looking designs for corporate websites. So it is a combination of figuring out what area would suit your art best and what you enjoy doing. And obviously there's no reason why you can't switch around later. I just feel like at the beginning it is important to focus your efforts on one at first. Do you think a degree affects one's chances of getting freelance work? Absolutely not. The cool thing about being an artist is that it really is your portfolio that is doing the talking for you. Nobody really cares about your degree. It's more about whether you are able to get the work done and if you have the talent to back you up. I'll be honest, the art school that I went to is not accredited. So if I wanted to do my master's in the US, I wouldn't be able to unless I redid my bachelor's all over again. But I have no problem finding work in illustration because people aren't looking at my degree, they're looking at my portfolio. And while I went to art school, I have quite a few friends who are completely self-taught and they are also doing perfectly fine as an illustrator because there are a lot of resources out there in the world now online where you can teach yourself. There are like short courses you can take, there are tutorials, there are YouTube videos. So you don't really need that proper art school education, especially because it costs so much. And I also know people who originally started off in one field and have moved on to a different one. I have a friend who is a super awesome artist for animation, Kat Sai. She is Chuwenji on Instagram. I believe that she originally went to school for psychology, and literally right after she graduated, she found work at, I think, DreamWorks as a artist for animation. So it really doesn't matter like where your degree is from or if you even have a degree. It is all about your portfolio. What is your favorite anime? I'll be honest, I don't really watch a lot of anime, mostly because I didn't really grow up with it. We didn't really have anime in Saudi Arabia. But let me think. I loved Full Metal Alchemist. I really enjoyed that. I love Studio Ghibli movies. I don't know if that counts. Yeah, that is pretty much all I can think of. If you could only follow one person on Insta, who would it be? So there's this children's book illustrator and animation artist who I really like. His name is Ward Jenkins. He is ward.jenkins on Instagram. He runs this Instagram page called Ward's Morgue File. And it's basically a collection of all of this illustration inspiration from a bunch of different artists' books. Like, it's literally from everything. And it's just such an awesome resource and like such a great source of inspiration. And I feel like we have like very similar, we draw from similar sources of inspiration, which is mostly mid-century artwork like this. Kind of like the old school golden book 1950s style of illustration. And since it's from so many different artists, it will definitely keep me busy. And if we're thinking of not art-related Instagrams, I also really enjoy the Instagram page cats.cursed, which is just videos of crazy cats. And I think I'll make this my last question. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? 5 years means I'll be, quick math, 28, 29, 30, 32 years old. Wow. And by 32, let me think. There are a couple of goals that I want to reach by then. So I don't know if like this is where I actually see myself in 5 years, but more so these are things I would love to bucket list reach to by 32. I don't know if like this Venn diagram intersects at all, but some things that I would really like to achieve by the time I'm 32 would be, I really want to work in feature animation. All of the animation that I've done so far has been for TV, which I absolutely love, but my dream is to work in feature animation on a movie. That would be absolutely incredible. Working at like Disney, Pixar, etc. I love living in Toronto, but I would love to try living in LA at some point also for work. That has been a big dream of mine. So maybe in 5 years, let's see if I'll be down south. I don't know what accent that was. It's a big goal of mine to also write books, because the other thing is that in 5 years I have illustrated a bunch of books, but I've never really written anything. And so a big goal of mine is to write my own stuff, and more so that I really want to be able to go to a bookstore and see my books there, ones that I've actually written, to go on like book tours, go to like libraries, go to classrooms and be there with my books and like read to kids and everything. And I want to be creating stuff that like has meaning, that is successful, you know, being like a New York Times bestseller or like winning awards. I don't know if that's kind of superficial, but I'd love to create books that do that. Maybe finding my style a little bit more, maybe not being so dependent on digital art. Like, there's nothing wrong with digital art, but like I said in my last vlog, I want to explore more traditional media, painting, color pencils, etc., and maybe find a way to like infuse both of them together, or even illustrate an entire book traditionally, because I've never done that before. Yeah, I don't know. 5 years is a long time. Like, it's been 5 years since I graduated from art school. I feel like I'm doing pretty well in the past 5 years. Yeah, like I've worked with some dream clients on some dream projects. So 5 years from now, 32, that would be like 10 years after graduating art school. That's crazy. But yeah, those are some big goals. Let's see if I reach them. I don't know. I might be shooting a little too high. But yeah, thank you guys for watching. Those are all the questions that I have right now, because also my voice is getting a little bit scratchy. I really need a drink of water. But thank you so much for watching my videos, for supporting me, for just being here. And please be sure to check out that Instagram giveaway. Link should be below. Please check that out. And as always, I love you guys. Take care and talk soon. Bye.